White's style of coaching is not for Caitlin Clark.
That there's a bit of a divide between the way that they see the game and the way that they think the Indiana Fever should play.
Possibly try to sabotage the greatest asset the league has ever gotten.
Stephanie White has officially been fired. And honestly, it feels long overdue. This is major news. Her downfall was sealed after that chaotic meltdown against the Valkyries on July 10th. And hey, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our deep dives. Her game plan was downright baffling, and once again, it completely undermined Caitlin Clark. The Fever looked lost and disorganized, while Clark was taken out of everything that makes her great. Fans had finally had enough. This isn't just another coaching change, it's the direct result of a coach who mishandled the league's biggest star.
Caitlin Clark's greatest asset, which is the creator and instigator of offense.
Man, July 10th was rough. The Indiana Fever got completely embarrassed at home by the Golden State Valkyries in a brutal 91-72 beatdown. But it wasn't just a bad loss. It felt like the team was coming apart right in front of everyone. And in the middle of that chaos was Caitlin Clark. She was back on the court, but honestly, she looked nothing like herself. It really felt like Stephanie White had a hand in that.
Spaded Caitlin Clark, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Coach Stephanie White started Aari McDonald next to Caitlin Clark against the Valkyries, which again, she explained by saying it helps to take the burden off of Caitlin.
She looked like a player who'd had her entire game taken away. No pick and rolls, no fast breaks, no control of the floor. Instead, Clark was pushed off the ball, left standing in the corner, while Aari McDonald ran the offense, reduced to looking like a forgotten role player. And the Fever's most reliable weapon, that dynamic Clark-Boston two-woman game, it disappeared without a trace.
Fans online has been threatening to quit watching the Indiana Fever basketball. Fans is threatening to quit going to the games. And if this was to happen,
Fever fans weren't just upset, they were flat out stunned. The first thought on everyone's mind was, what kind of lineup is this? Caitlin Clark slotted in at small forward had people rubbing their eyes in disbelief. And when she wrapped up her highly anticipated return with only 8 points, the internet went wild. Not because Clark played poorly, but because it genuinely looked like she was being deliberately taken out of the game.
Under fire by Fever fans, she blasted her team after the squad's loss to the Golden State Valkyries.
Because I felt like there was a lack of competitive fire. With the exception of about 2 5-minute spurts, our attention to detail was poor.
At the post-game press conference, Stephanie White grabbed the mic and lit a firestorm. She refused to shoulder even an ounce of responsibility, instead throwing her players under the bus. She blasted the team for being undisciplined, lacking effort, and showing little attention to detail. She even claimed they didn't have enough competitive fire. But here's the thing, she never once addressed why her rotations made no sense, why Clark was so badly misused, or why the entire game plan collapsed the moment the ball was tipped.
Our attention to detail, undisciplined. I felt like our energy and our competitive fire was not there, and that's disappointing.
Let's be real. This wasn't just tone deaf. It came across as intentional. White carried herself as if she had nothing to do with the mess unfolding. But the fans weren't buying it for a second. Everyone could see exactly what was happening right in front of them. The blame fell squarely on the coaching staff, and that's when the whispers started turning into full-on shouts. The message was loud and clear.
It's like you got to get ready for the
Stephanie
next.
White is sabotaging.
It's sort of the nature of compartmentalization. Defensively, just lots of movement, lots of lateral movement. I thought she looked good at times. And I think that's just building consistency and building her endurance and all of that. So I was pleased.
So, that's an interesting
Let's be real. None of this is new. The friction between Clark and White has been simmering for weeks, maybe even months. It actually traces back to May 24th, right after that nail-biting loss to the Liberty. Clark said it plainly on record. "I'm at my best when the ball is in my hands. That's when I'm most effective." But just minutes later, White fired back in her own way, praising Clark's cutting and screening while noticeably downplaying her ball handling. That clash in philosophy never faded. If anything, it's only grown sharper, louder, and a lot messier.
Afterwards, in regards to basically what went wrong and why, the Fever fell so flat.
White keeps insisting that playing Clark off the ball simply gives the team different looks. She even went so far as to compare it to how the Mavericks move the ball more efficiently without Luka Doncic on the floor. Yeah, Luka, a generational talent, just like Clark, and the driving force of his team. So when White makes that comparison, it's hard not to catch the subtext. It almost sounds like she's suggesting the team performs better when Caitlin isn't controlling the ball.
I've seen these glimpses where I do believe the Fever at their best can still be what I've talked about and what I've discussed. But
this isn't just a strategy, it's a whole philosophy, one that directly challenges everything Clark has ever represented. Think about it. At Iowa in the early WNBA days, and even under the national spotlight, she's never been just a spot-up shooter or a decoy. She's a true playmaker, a floor general in every sense, a once-in-a-generation engine who can effortlessly pour in 30 points while dishing out a dozen assists.
The one thing that was in existence that actually worked, that felt like a little bit of something offensive that worked, gone.
When Stephanie White put Erie McDonald at point guard against the Valkyries, it felt like one insult too many. The results? Utter disaster. The offense fell apart, Clark looked completely lost, and any sense of chemistry with Boston vanished into thin air. Yet somehow, the only person seemingly oblivious to the chaos was the coach herself.
The fandom is in pure crash-out mode. Somebody exposed.
The fans, of course, weren't buying it. Experts are slamming her system, calling it a point-forward mess, and claiming it completely stifles Clark's game. But the big question on everyone's mind is, why is Clark being treated like just another role player? And why has the one offensive play that actually worked, the brilliant Clark-Boston pick and roll, vanished entirely?
Does Stephanie White have an agenda? Her coaching style is influenced by her NC2A championship coach, Carolyn Peck.
Then there's the whole Carolyn Peck connection. White was actually mentored by Peck, who just days ago told ESPN that the Fever were better off without Clark. That's not just a bold opinion, it's a massive red flag. White even followed Peck to Vanderbilt, where Peck famously drove top players into the transfer portal. Now it all feels like history repeating itself. The same pattern of losing locker rooms and mismanaging elite talent. Whether you chalk it up to a hidden agenda or sheer incompetence, one thing is undeniable: something had to give, and finally it did. Stephanie White is out. The Indiana Fever front office made the only move they could. This wasn't about a single bad game. It was a consistent pattern of failure, a mismatch between coach and star, and a team spiraling while sitting on one of the most valuable players the league has seen in decades.
There is a plot to destroy Caitlin Clark, and Stephanie White and the Indiana Fever might be in on it.
Let's stick to the facts. The Fever were sitting at 5-4 before Valky's loss on July 10th. That defeat dropped them to 5-15 after a humiliating 19-point blowout against an expansion team that didn't even exist last season. And this was supposed to be Caitlin Clark's highly anticipated return. Instead of stepping into a system that highlighted her strengths, she was thrown into a clunky off-ball role alongside Erie McDonald, who hadn't even been in the WNBA 3 weeks ago. This isn't just bad coaching, it's borderline malpractice. Seriously.
Stephanie White is an idiot, should be fired. This woman played Ari McDonald 18 minutes in the first half. 3 weeks ago, Ari McDonald wasn't on a WNBA roster.
Plus, Stephanie White's track record hardly inspires confidence. At Vanderbilt, she essentially ran the program into the ground, finishing with a 40-win record. Even more telling, several star players, including an All-SEC forward and the team's top scorer, ended up transferring. Why? They felt undervalued, misused, and ultimately sidelined by White's inability to manage elite talent effectively.
Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, deadly connection, pick and roll, two-man game connection that has worked.
Fast forward to the WNBA, and Caitlin Clark is doing it all over again. The #1 overall pick is leading all rookies in both scoring and assists, topping jersey sales, and single-handedly filling arenas from coast to coast. But Stephanie White had an answer for her. She completely shut down Caitlin's game, taking away her signature pick and roll with Aaliyah Boston, forcing her to linger in the corner, and stripping away the very freedom that makes her a generational talent. The ball in her hands and the ability to create at will.
Caitlin Clark has a horrible game in her return. The whole team is horrible.
Now, honestly, that whole situation was just a disaster. This wasn't merely bad strategy, it was straight-up sabotage. Intentional or stubborn, the result was the same. The Fever kept spiraling, not improving. Meanwhile, the league's brightest star, Caitlin Clark, looked completely miserable. Eventually, the front office had no choice but to step in. When your coach can't handle the future of your franchise, the league's most valuable asset, you don't sit around and hope for a miracle. You pull the plug, and that's exactly what they did. Caitlin Clark might not be storming the court or calling out coaches on Instagram, but she's sending a message all the same. And if you've been paying attention, it's sounding a lot like a cry for help.
I think we need to do a better job of getting me the ball in transition, whether somebody's there or not. I think there's a fine balance of playing me off the ball and also getting the ball in my hands. That's when I'm the best in transition. Everybody knows that. I'm very open about that.
She said it repeatedly, each time phrased a little differently and delivered with a slightly different tone. But it always circles back to that one definitive line. I'm at my best when the ball's in my hands.
Consider the possibility that the Indiana Fever are in on the plot to destroy Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark simply isn't clicking in this system. No sugarcoating it. She's like a Ferrari stuck in a bumper car arena. This is the same player who dominated college basketball, leading in both points and assists. And now, she's sidelined, watching Aari McDonald, who was unemployed just a month ago, take over the offense as if it's her own.